We all love feeling strong in the games we play. Power fantasies are absolutely a main draw of video games. Between slaying the horrible dragon or taking down an army of thousands by yourself, being so much better than everyone is one of the main reasons we play video games. Armored Core, for the most part, is like, guess what? You're gonna die like everyone else. Good luck piloting your robot. And a lot of the time, our weapons just don't feel effective in our hands until we get lots of practice with them. But in today's list, most of these weapons are plug and play. Hold down the square button to delete target. Well, sort of. But these weapons are either way overtuned, way too effective in most scenarios, or just do way too much damage. This is the Raven's Cortex Top 10 Most Overpowered Weapons in the Armored Core franchise. Before we start our list, let's get into our honorable mentions first. But I wanted to say that I'm only going to be talking about the mainline series of games, no mobile versions or PSP ports. Yes, I know about the SASPWP. And as usual, we'll be talking mostly about PvE. I know there are plenty of strong PvP weapons, but I ain't really a PvP guy. But I will mention if I do know that they're good in a PvP scenario. Let's start these honorable mentions. WM-AT. The great granddaddy of all large missiles as we know them today is the WM-AT from Project Phantasma, a back large-mounted missile launcher that has ludicrous range, tiny weight, 910 weight points for some reason, and insane damage potential, hitting 3 times harder than the grenade launcher. The only reason this thing isn't on the list today is that if I counted every busted Generation 1 weapon, the list would be all Generation 1 weapons, so it gets its mention here. Ultimate Weapons, 5th Gen. The ultimate weapons are great for a power fantasy, and are insanely powerful, but in terms of sheer brokenness, I think the limit the games place on the player are usually pretty fair, and the weapons themselves are all absolutely ridiculous, but for pure overpoweredness, you'd expect a weapon type named Ultimate to be super strong, so they get a spot here instead of taking up all the spots on the normal list. And I really do love launching Giga Missiles. KWG HCL-50 Left Arm Howitzer, Armored Core 3. The left-hand howitzer is a fan favorite, and the choice of many a pilot who prefer having a ranged weapon on their left arm in the series. Breaking in when there weren't too many left-hand weapons, the left arm howitzer has high damage, high heat, and a luxurious ammo capacity to make it an awesome weapon for both missions and the arena. Stymied a little bit by its awkward firing arc and high ammo cost per shot, when comboed with a machine gun, you get a wood chipper of an AC build that'll chunk through tanks and bosses alike. Micro Missiles, Generation 3.5. As stated in my strongest missiles list, micro missiles are painfully effective at killing things. Pulverizers, ACs, and hard targets. That on top of holding 10 salvos and linking with external missiles. When I make these lists though, I don't always want to repeat entries or all my top 10s are going to be boring. I'm sure I'll be repeating some things in the series, but micros needed to mention because of their deadly efficacy. CRWH-01HP, Armored Core Last Raven. Maybe not as deserving as a spot on here, so I'll give it the last of the honorable mentions. The CRWH-01HP Revolver, as it's called by a lot of people, is an exceptionally powerful hanger weapon in the Last Raven entry of the game. It hits hard, has decent range, and reloads quickly, as well as having an okay amount of ammo. Banned in PvP play for being too ubiquitous as a hanger unit, it's one of those weapons you really just need to try to feel how good it is. A great backup for those longer missions in Armored Core Last Raven. Alright, with our honorable mentions out of the way, let's get into this overpowered list. And hey, there might be some things on here you've never tried, so let's get into it, Ravens. Number 10. I know I'm going to get absolutely dragged for putting this one so low on the list, but honestly, I almost didn't include it because I don't really think it's that broken, especially for PvE play. But it does trivialize a lot of things if it connects, and that, of course, is the legendary Generation 1 Moonlight Laser Blade. Yes, I know, I see you already going to the comments to complain that this thing is so low, but just hear me out. Hard-hitting melee isn't that new to the franchise. Things like pile bunkers in 5th Gen straight up one-shot things. The Ashmead is legendary for trivializing most of the game in 6, it's not new. The reason the Moonlight is this high is that it's pretty easy to use to make things just evaporate. For those who don't know, blading while in the air in old generation Armored Core will activate a tracking attack for your blade, where you will snap onto your target and home in on the victim. In Generation 1, this can be a little bit janky, resulting in some absolutely insane movement. But if you did actually connect with the target, half the time they would just shatter rather than explode. Shatter deaths in Armored Core 1 means that you overkilled the enemy so hard that they don't even get to die properly. Going against some of the highest HP enemies in the game, like the Shinonome Melee Combat MT, the Moonlight aerial strike cuts through this thing like a hot knife through butter, and ACs can get demolished in just 2 or 3 strikes from a grounded hit. The triple damage for the aerial strike is insane. All this power is kind of balanced around the fact that the Moonlight requires you to, well, get in melee range, which isn't always the easiest thing to do, especially in AC on AC combat. Melee enthusiasts might be groaning at me for this one's ranking, but all it really did was set the standard for good melee in the series, and melee in games like Armored Core 5 or Armored Core 6 kind of stole its thunder. Number 9. So I know that in a previous video I said that sniper cannons were my forte, but for some reason, old gen sniper rifles just didn't always click with me. The Mirage WH-02 RS Worm sniper rifle kind of breaks that trend. Beloved by the community for its ability to delete targets with a double tap from a postal code away, the Worm in Armored Core Nexus was an absolute menace. While I personally preferred the CR-WR-73 RS sniper rifle in my playthroughs, the Worm's expanded magazine size and double tap feature made it a breeze to use in Nexus's missions, assuming that they don't get too close to you. On top of this, the general damage profile of this thing was nuts. Hitting for an attack power of 820 from a ludicrously long distance away was exceptionally powerful. Aircraft, MTs, ACs, it didn't matter what you were fighting. If you were on the same battlefield as it, you were probably blowing someone away. This is before we even get into the double tap feature. It's a sniper rifle with a magazine, which is not common in the Armored Core franchise. Sure, it's only a magazine of 2 shots, but they fire quick. If you're in combat with an enemy AC, you'll be surprised at how quick this thing shreds AI opponents. You would think that going through this ammo quickly would be a downside, but the total ammo count of 60 keeps you nice and comfortable for extended engagements as well. There's also a left-hand version too, letting you double up for double the fun if you so desire. The only real downside of the weapon, of course, is the sniper FCS, which can be a hassle in close-range engagements, but that isn't really the fault of the rifle. There are plenty of narrow and deep weapon types in the games. Taking a Worm is good in pretty much all scenarios short of the closest of close-range combat, and for that, we're giving it the number 9 spot today. Number 8. Man, I love this thing. I didn't even realize how good it was until I strapped it onto my AC build and was like, whoa, really? Available from the start of Last Raven for 93,200 credits, the CR-WH-05BP right and left arm bazooka is an absolute force to be reckoned with. Weighing in at a whopping 1,210 weight points, this bazooka demands that you build around it. But man, it really is worth it. In a game like Last Raven, where ammo counts are significantly lower than their 3rd-gen counterparts, bazookas really did start to become a liability with their low ammo counts. In earlier gens, your bazookas could have 50 or even 80 rounds, but in Last Raven, the base hard-hitting bazooka has 20. This weapon seeks to fix that problem by doubling the ammo storage for a marginal weight increase. And while yes, the 40-shot bazooka has lower attack values compared to the 20-shot, the performance in all other aspects is almost the same. Last Raven has the habit of throwing a few amounts of small enemies at you, and then topping things off with either a pulverizer or an AC battle. Unfortunately for players, getting to the end with your 20-shot bazooka and having enough ammunition to fight an enemy AC is usually going to be pretty rare. On top of that, the weapon is devastating when fighting enemy ACs, both players and NPCs. Bazookas are great at dealing damage to parts, smashing off extremities like they aren't even there. And the fact this thing doesn't cost any energy to fire is a bonus as well. Also, it really has to be mentioned that the damage is phenomenal. 1,600 attack power per shot with 40 shots is a huge amount of potential damage. On top of the Zook causing heat stress, you have a highly effective and oppressive weapon. I'm sure that in Last Raven PvP, this thing was also an absolute menace, but for Last Raven mission running, it is a unit, assuming you can spare the weight. I believe also that the Ninebreaker version is even better than the Last Raven version as well, but requires you to beat most of the game to get it. So I'm putting the Last Raven one here instead. Number 7. Okay, this one might come off as a bit of a surprise to people who are in the machine guns are best in old gen camp. But time and time again, I always see people say that they are wrong about this weapon and that it converted them once they started trying it. Of course, I am talking about the humble MWG RF220 from Armored Core 3 and Armored Core Silent Line. Affectionately called the Green Rifle from its progenitor in Armored Core Project Phantasma by the community, is a thing that is so painfully consistent and easy to use that it is a terror in its own right. I will be the first to admit, I wrote off a lot of rifles in my earlier days, but when I went back to actually try some of them later on, their power was immediately apparent from the get-go. So what makes this rifle so strong? The name of the game, dear viewer, is consistency. The rifle has an exceptionally forgiving targeting box, being wide and shallow in Armored Core 3, and getting nerfed to special in Armored Core Silent Line. Great fire rate, decent damage per shot, good range, above average heat generation, good projectile speed, a generous magazine capacity, and last but not least, above average stagger. All of these factors combine to make an absolutely terrifying weapon to run into on the battlefield, and makes plenty of fights in the arena an absolute breeze. And while I'm aware that the CRWR73R2 is just as loved in Last Raven, I do try to keep the games on equal representation, if I can. So the early 3rd gen gets the representation today. Long story short, this gun is a well-rounded murder machine and fits into almost any build. Its effectiveness is legendary in the community, and if you're willing to give rifles another shot, and maybe you want to see some other ones in another list, I guarantee you this gun will not disappoint. It's a total terror, so it gets our number 7 spot on the list today. Number 6. Did you guys hear that? Feel that? That chill down your spine? You could try and run away from it, but it won't matter. The SG-027 Zimmerman, developed by Balaam Industries, will hit you at any range. The quintessential weapon of people posting online asking if their build is good, only to have 2 Zims, has happened so much to me on the forums it's crazy. The Zimmerman has a legendary reputation among Armored Core 6 players as a boogeyman in online play. And while I don't want to focus too much on the PvP aspects of how strong or isn't strong the Zimmerman is in online play, I know that the PvP maniacs would rip me apart if I didn't at least acknowledge it. The Zimmerman's strength is in the fact that it is a shotgun that is highly effective at medium to close ranges and has a punishing amount of stagger for getting hit. For people who aren't as aware of the Zimmerman, long-range play is pretty much non-existent in Armored Core 6, and the Zim is a symptom of that lack of range in the game. So it is effective at almost all ranges that you would be normally engaging at. This is really good for the majority of the bosses or AC battles in the game as well. Its forgiving range for a shotgun compared to other hyper-close range weapons in the game, which, shotguns should be good at, makes it a replacement for things like rifles and handguns, which it really shouldn't be replacing. That being said, the Zimmerman is fun to use, and if you want an absolutely trivial time breezing through most of the game, a dual set of these will make your life cake. FromSoft did acknowledge that the Zimmerman was overtuned with its 1.03.1 regulation patch, hitting it with a quadruple nerf to its attack power, impact, accumulative impact, and direct hit adjustment. But people still complain about the Zimmermans to this day. While I don't know enough about the high-end PvP scene to comment on it, I do know that in PvE, the Zimmerman is more than adequate for 95% of the missions in the game, and I'm guilty of using one myself sometimes, but it really is a lot of fun to use. Its upfront face nuking damage and easy to accumulate stagger makes it a great weapon for setting up a build with, and as a Balaam sympathizer, I'm okay with this being better than those scummy Arquebus weapons. Number 5. I think it's about time we talk about the favorite weapon of many a Raven in the early days of Generation 3, and that is the Mirage MWG MG1000 and its higher heat cousin, the MG800 from Armored Core 3 and Silent Line. These things were right at the apex of when machine guns were at their strongest. Forgiving hitbox, incredible FCS, sustained damage, bottomless ammo pools, amazing heat application, easy gun handling and tracking. I could keep going on and on. Machine guns were ludicrous in Generation 3. I don't think any of them were bad. This brings us to the MWG MG1000. I think it earns such a high spot on this list just because of the sheer ease of usability in relation to power. It's absolutely ridiculous how much value you can squeeze out of these things. That's not to disparage anyone who likes this thing. I love it myself. But the skill ceiling for this thing, in my opinion, is quite low. Being able to track an enemy and hose them down until they explode eventually is an understatement, and people who even have weak tracking skill will find this thing quite usable for them. Getting behind an opponent with this thing is a one-way trip to total pain, and I'm sure many players had no idea what was coming for them when the arena opponent Exile showed up post-clear. On top of its arena performance, it's an amazing mission runner. Huge magazines of 1,000 rounds is more than enough to clear out pretty much any mission if you aren't just holding the button down and firing blind. And if you're really inefficient with ammo, you can always strap on some magazines and ammo extenders to make this thing's ammunition stores even more ludicrous. If you're new to the series, the MG1000 is an amazing way to start the game, and will teach you the basics of weapon handling. But make sure you expand out and try all the other amazing weapons this game has to offer. I really do understand why everyone moved to this thing over the previously mentioned RF220 though. Those walls of bullets are oh so satisfying. And it looks great in the opening cutscene too. Getting the number 4 spot on our list of overpowered weapons of the franchise is the legendary Karasawa Mark II laser rifle from the second generation games Armored Core 2 and Armored Core 2 Another Age. This thing does it all. It slices, it dices, it trivializes pretty much any engagement. All things considered, it really isn't that heavy of a weapon either. Looking like a knockoff of the Evangelion Positron rifle, the Karasawa Mark II is the Generation 2 weapon equipped by all the terrors in the arena. Both Matius, Leos Klein, and Ares rock one of these things, and there is no ambiguity as to why. It is a monster. Terrifying in both the arena and for mission efficiency, the Karasawa Mark II is top of class in pretty much any metric you could care about in 2nd generation Armored Core. High projectile speed, high damage, good firing rate, a nutty good ammo capacity for a weapon of its caliber, and AoE damage for some reason? This makes the Karasawa Mark II a beast of a mission runner, capable of one-shotting almost any MT that shows up en masse, and double-tapping any of the heavier ones. On top of this, it's painfully efficient at crushing ACs in the arena, ripping chunks out of opponents at impressive distances, and pushing targets around on impact. The Karasawa Mark II isn't without a few minor, and I need to emphasize minor, downsides. That being its energy drain while firing and poor heat application. These downsides are mostly trivial though, as energy drain can be compensated for with optional parts, and not applying heat isn't as huge of a deal until Generation 3.5, where it actually limits energy regeneration and limits mobility. With all of that being said, I have trouble thinking of almost any missions across either of the Gen 2 games where the Karasawa Mark II isn't an amazing choice. Pound for pound, this thing mogs its solid weapon equivalent, the bazooka. Having better stats in pretty much every stat short of heat damage, at a lighter weight, it just does literally everything at a weight cost most ACs can afford outside the total lightest. It's not the strongest variant of this family of weapons, but it does sure as hell give it a run for its money. So the Karasawa Mark II skirts just short of the podium today at number 4. Hey Ravens, just want to take a quick moment out of the video here before we get into the top 3 to ask you that if you're enjoying the video, please consider subscribing. Still got lots of Armored Core stuff coming down the pipe, and if you want to see it, please subscribe to the channel. But only do so if you're actually enjoying the content. I'd also like to thank my channel members, Satiga, Peter Van Heerden 2133, and Red Hot Boss 1. If you're interested in supporting the channel or helping on my Patreon, the link will be in the description. Thanks Ravens, let's get back into the list. Number 3. For number 3 is a weapon I don't get to talk about as much as I would like to, because frankly, it's just so ridiculous, I feel bad when using it. And that is the Generation 1 WA Finger, specifically the Armored Core Project Phantasma version. Machine guns are a favorite for lots of pilots in the series. Heck, I have the number 5 spot for the 1000 shot variant from Gen 3. But this gun was FromSoft mangling the balance of what a machine gun should be. And yes, before people point out that it's a weapon you get for conquering the entire arena of Project Phantasma, it sure as hell does not detract from the total ridiculousness that this thing is. So, the previously mentioned MG1000 can get up to 1500 rounds with the double back round extender in Armored Core 3. This thing? 3000 rounds base. Now RC. There must be some sort of downside for that much ammo. Well, sorry to break it to you, viewer, but it only weighs 150 weight points, which is completely insane for the amount of ammo it holds, but it keeps getting better. The WG AR-1000, the Generation 1 equivalent of the previously mentioned MG-1000, has a reload time of 1 unit and an attack power per bullet of 105. The Finger? Same thing. Reload speed of 1 unit, but over double the attack power at 250 damage. Oh, is that not powerful enough for you? Well, aren't you just difficult to please? Multiply that fire rate by a factor of 5. Because this thing, it shoots 5 shots at a time, absolutely hosing down anything that gets in your way. Anyone in the arena? Toast. Mission? Already complete. MTs? Might as well not be there. Phantasma? The final boss? Evaporated. Assuming you survived the lag from his mission and this thing just spewing rounds everywhere. The only thing that resembles a downside is the fact that the range on this thing is its strong suit. Which makes sense, it's a machine gun that fires rounds in a spread. It also has the ability to really slow your game down to a chug when you're just holding down that square button. It is worth mentioning that the gun did receive hefty nerfs in Armored Core Master of Arena, taking a sledgehammer to the knees of the Finger with damage, ammo reserve, and reload time nerfs. But if you got caught in the path of this thing, you were dead. It would obliterate anything in its path. And that sort of exceptional firepower is only rivaled by 2 other weapons in my opinion. So the WA Finger in Project Phantasma gets the bronze medal today on our list of overpowered weapons. Number 2. So, in these top 10s that I make, I usually try to avoid putting weapons on these lists in their pre-nerfed state. My logic being that if FromSoft caught it and fixed it, then it's usually okay to not mention them. They did stop the problem. But for this list, I'm making a special exception. And for our silver medal entry today, I'll be talking about the Saline 05s from Regulation 1.0 of Armored Core 4 Answer. I know some people were quite upset with me for not mentioning them in my strongest missiles list, so I'll be mentioning them here instead. The Saline 05s were just an unstoppable nightmare in Regulation 1.0. Their tracking, damage, and primal armor stripping were all top class. That, coupled with the fact that they had an absolutely ludicrously large amount of salvos they could fire at 36 launches, made this weapon the go-to for crushing any and all difficult fights in the game. Equipped by the poster boy of Generation 4, White Glint, these MSAC International Scatter Missiles are still the go-to weapon for any next pilot who is having too much trouble clearing any of the fights, or heck, even wanting to S-rank them. Using these things in Regulation 1.0 makes me feel dirty. I can press the fire button pretty much whenever I want, knowing that I'll be getting some, if not all of the damage, and primal armor reduction as well. In addition to these things pretty much always hitting, the damage numbers are unilaterally ridiculously high. I can't think of another time that I can hit 35,000 damage or higher on a target for my damage done. It really is just insane. I don't even have to aim. Just lock on and the missiles do the work. On the flip side, this thing does have the side effect of making the White Glint fight in Reg 1.0 actually a little bit harder, especially on hard difficulty. Staying in line of sight is a death sentence, and trying to wait him out is going to take a long time. He has 72 shots of these things, but you can always just use them against him and he'll just die. I don't want to be too hard on From Software for releasing these things since they caught it and fixed them pretty quickly, but I gotta say, it was a pretty big oversight to have a weapon this strong from the get-go with online play. They already knew micro-missiles were good from Generation 3.5. If you're having trouble S-ranking your 4-answer playthroughs and want the easiest way to get your duck, slap 2 of these things on, set it to Regulation 1.0, and pretty much go into any mission. It will do the rest. But it doesn't quite obliterate the list for a first place spot, so it gets our silver medal today. Number 1. When I was making this list, I was a bit conflicted if I should include 2 different versions of a weapon with the same name on it, as I'm sure not everyone wants to see all variants of the 1000 shot machine gun or multiple kinds of the green rifle that exist. But for the number 1 spot, I think I would make an exception by putting the bigger, better, stronger, and faster version of the number 4 entry, by including the first generation WG1 Karasawa laser rifle. On top of that, yeah, old gen parts are freaking busted, ridiculously so. The WM-AT that I mentioned in the honorable mentions could have cracked the top 3 as well, but I know everyone doesn't just want to see a Gen 1 fest for these videos, even though it's my favorite. Now, before you go to the comments and complain that there are 2 of them on this list, I really want to emphasize that these 2 weapons function very differently from each other. Yes, they are both very strong, but the sheer absurdity that the Generation 1 Karasawa can be pushed to is extreme. While not as flashy and over the top as the WA Finger, also from Gen 1, the WG1 Karasawa makes up for it in pure, uncompromising power and efficiency. This thing will scythe down literally any opponent in a matter of seconds, and from a time zone away too. Found in the back of the level Destroy Fuel Depot behind the last wall of fuel tanks you need to destroy, the Karasawa differentiates itself from a few of the strongest weapons on this list by being available early, trivializing the rest of the Generation 1 games from the first quarter of the first game's missions onward. The Karasawa shares the same strength of its Gen 2 counterpart by being an exceptionally efficient mission runner and arena-clearing monster. This is only further enhanced by the slew of optional parts that push this laser rifle from outrageously efficient to absolutely terrifying in performance, boosting its fire rate, damage, and energy usage if you're playing any of the later games. Ironically, the only enemy in this game that I can think of that poses a threat to the Karasawa is the Crusader MT, and that's because there are so many of them and they are so energy resistant that it can empty your reserves before clearing the mission. I went over a bit of the Karasawa's legacy and namesake in my most iconic weapons video, so if you want to learn more about the weapon, check out that video after this one. And while I think the Gen 2's is a powerful weapon, the WG1 Karasawa in Gen 1 is just so much better. Its few weaknesses include that without a generator to output a bunch of energy to fire it, it can deplete your reserves in short order. That, with its high weight, does demand that builds are usually built around it, which can also be difficult since there are parts that you just cannot equip with it. But these downsides are so insignificant in comparison to its upsides and devastating power that it barely warrants a mention. If you're looking to unilaterally demolish anything and everything in an Armored Core game, the WG1 Karasawa cannot be beat, in my opinion, and for that, it gets our number 1 spot today of being the most overpowered Armored Core weapon. Did any of you not expect the Karasawa to take first place? I know there are plenty of strong weapons in the PVE version of the game, but I gotta say, it's hard to not completely steamroll all of Generation 1 with this thing. Speaking of getting steamrolled, want to see some pilots who can't kill anything? And my quest to find the worst of the worst? Check this video out. And if you want a bit more of that lore analysis, check out this video on Gun 1 Michigan. You might get an appreciation for that bad fall a little bit more in this one. As always, Ravens, thank you for all the kind comments, and I'll see you in the next one.